I'm your host, Mari Reesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all ages, backgrounds, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today I'll be chatting with Lynne Bowman. She's a grandma and the author of Brownies for Breakfast. Please enjoy Lynne Bowman. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today I am here with Lynne Bowman, who is a grandma and an author, and she's going to share all of the wonderful things that she does that go into being both of these wonderful things. So welcome to the podcast.
I love that you put grandma first, Mari. That was great. And that's such an opportunity to be creative, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
What fun. I mean, revisiting all the great old books and making up new ones with the little ones. And I love it. It's the best ever. Super.
That's amazing. And I love that you see being a grandma as the creative experience, because I can only imagine, I'm not there yet in my own life, but I can only imagine how much creativity goes into exploring that.
Well, with any luck. And, when your children are born, you think they're the most marvelous things in the universe and nothing was ever that good. But when your grandchildren are born, it's like, oh my gosh, there was never a baby in the entire history of the universe who was as fabulous as this child or that child. Yes, I'm very fortunate indeed to have the two most spectacular grandchildren in the entire universe so far. Yeah.
I love it. Well, congratulations on your two grandbabies and getting to experience that. But why don't you take a couple of minutes and just let our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Okay, well, before my ultimate career of being a grandma occurred, I have really written my whole life, not intentionally, Mari, but because that was what was there for me to do, that I couldn't seem to find anybody else that knew how to do it the way I thought it should be done. So I did all kinds of things. I was an illustrator. I did voice work. I was an actress. I did makeup work because I was born in LA, in Hollywood of all places. So I grew up where this company town, everywhere you turned, somebody was making a movie or doing a screenplay or a thing. So that just luck of the draw. I wound up in the middle of all that, and your friend would say, well, I'm shooting a thing on, could you do that? Sure. I'll show up, I'll suit up, I'll be there. Do you know how to do makeup? Oh yeah, I can do makeup. Rah. So that's what I did. And I wound up coming back. I went back east, took a job with an NBC affiliate back there to be a weather. I actually took a job to be a news person when there weren't any women doing that. So I was thrilled, but they stuck me on the weather desk. I became the worst weather person ever in the entire history of broadcasting. I will say proudly. And sometimes those failures, those horrible, really public, awful failures are the most wonderful things that happen in our lives in terms of redirecting us or teaching us what we need to know. So I did not have a career as a weather person. I went off to do advertising, marketing work, and always loved it. I felt very at home doing that stuff, and came back to California in 1980 with a newly single mom with a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 4-year-old. But I landed in Silicon Valley. My sister was there. Mm-hmm. And I landed in the middle of this crazy time when the world was changing. I wasn't particularly aware that it was, but it was changing. And my sister sat me down to her new Apple II computer and said, you're going to learn how to use this. And I said, no, I'm not. Sorry. And she said, no, you're going to do this. what? Yeah, you're going to do this because it's survival. Okay, well, all right. So I learned very quickly and was delighted the way you are when you realize how these things work. And oh, golly, that means I could do this and I could do that. So I think maybe I was the first person to write advertising copy in an agency on an Apple II computer, besides maybe one guy, a guy named Regis McKenna, that was doing this. And so all accident, but there I was, and there I had my Apple. And so I got a job at this agency, and I walked in with this computer under my arm. And of course, they all thought I was nuts. What's
Yeah.
wrong with her? I mean, come on, what do you think you're doing here? But that all changed really quickly. And so long career, decades later, doing a lot of print work, a lot of, shooting commercials, TV commercials. And that's how I made my living. And it never occurred to me to do something that wasn't creative,
Yeah.
right? I mean, uh, everything is creative in its way, as I have already discussed. We know that's true, but we were actually called creatives, and
Right.
that's what we were selling. And my job was to walk into a room, typically the only girl in those days, room full of nerds, men, who were so proud of this technology, whatever it was they're producing. And I got to be the one saying, well, yeah, but who wants it? And why would they want it? And how much do you think they would pay for it? And so I the creative part was interesting and fun, but the strategic part of it was interesting and kind of
Yeah.
fun too. It was a real battle with a lot of these guys.
You got to ask all the important questions. And
Yeah, I was that girl,
I
For
love
sure.
that. And then you made your way to being an author.
Well, I didn't make my way. It found me. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, I actually, my first book was a book called Fast, Cheap, and Skinny that I did with a buddy of mine, because she said, you cook like nobody I've ever seen. You can put it on the table faster. It's really yummy, and you're broke and it doesn't cost you. How do you do this? So, and as anyone with kids knows, you're always broke, right? I mean, that's just the way that goes. Um, so she said, let's do a little bit. And we made it in PageMaker, Mari, which you're too young to know what that is, right?
No, I do know what that is. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it was I believe the first that was commercially available desktop publishing.
Yeah.
So we made a book with it, and it was kind of cute, fun, did the illustrations and so on, and we published it. And then another pal, whose name you may know, Deidre Hall, I think she has racked up more hours on television than anyone, actually. She's been on since 1975 or 76 on
Wow.
Day for Lives as the beautiful and wise Dr. Marlena Evans.
Mm-hmm.
So, and when she got that job, I mean, the two of us are going, well, I don't know, Kate, we had no clue that it would last a week or 6 weeks or 6 years. And now it's decades later. But she and I did a couple of books together and had a lot of fun doing it. And I published them with her. And what did we do? Oh, we had a designer, Elise Huffman, work with us on it. And it was because she was going to Australia. And I said, had been contracted to do that. And she said, go with me. I said, of course I will. I'll go with you. But you need a book. So we did a book in 6 weeks. And it was recipes and health stuff and, stuff that I had and knew how to do. And then the second book was more of a beauty book that you would expect from Deidre. Big fun, and her fans loved it, and it was fun and interesting to publish it ourselves.
I love all of this, and that it falls into your lap. It sounds like so many of these just kind of showed up in your life when you needed them. And
well, and Mari, it's about saying yes. It's
yeah,
about going, yeah, okay, I can do that, whether you can or not, whether you think it's going to be brilliant or not. I'm a little stupid that way. I just dive in, you know. I
No,
don't
that's
know.
stupid. It sounds rather smart to me. Just keep saying yes to.
I don't know when to go home, you know. It's like just okay, I'll do that. Yeah, sure. No problem.
I
I've seen
love it.
it done. I can do that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well,
So
when you think about all of the things that you've done and being a creative human in your life, what does it mean to you to be creative?
I have no idea what it's like to not be creative. I, um, I think the only difference is I was kind of a feral kid, Mari.
Mm.
I never had anyone say to me, you can't, you won't, you shouldn't, particularly. And I was the youngest of three, and my mom was not well, particularly. And so I was not supervised, right?
Mhm.
And which is, I recommend it in many ways. Today, kids are so highly supervised and so
Yeah.
boxed in so many ways. But I just ran wild. And, you know, we went up in the hills and we rode the horses that shouldn't be ridden. And we, you know, picked up the snakes and we climbed the trees and fell out of them and all those things. And I think that's part of being creative is if you have a concept of yourself that doesn't necessarily involve no, right?
Mhm.
That it's more about, okay. And if we don't think of it as creative, it's just having an adventurous spirit, not feeling that you're being watched or limited by anything.
Yeah.
Uh, and I just was kind of wild. Uh,
I love that. I love the adventurous spirit. Um, I'm curious, being an adventurous spirit, how do you support adventurous spiritedness in others?
however I can. I love having young people in my life, and uh, I have some lovely young, kind of a bunch of young ladies who've just graduated from high school here in our little town and who've gone off in various directions to school. And it's been so much fun going through that process with them, making a decision about school and their futures. Um, and yes, dressing them. And, you know, we went into my hat closet for a couple things and the makeup and all that sort of thing, which is really fun. Um, People need to be encouraged. Everyone, I hope, has someone, a grandma, a friend, an auntie, the weird lady down the street, someone who will encourage them. And whenever I get an opportunity to encourage anyone, I certainly grab it and do.
Mhm.
Um, it's big fun for me. And yeah, you know, the whole idea of being a grandma, it's kind of mysterious and wonderful and fun to me because I think I didn't imagine, I wasn't sure I was going to live this long. And my mom died young, and I don't have a lot of older people in my
Mm.
family. So it's this whole kind of unexplored area of what does an older person do? What does an older person say? You know, what is the role of an older person? And
Yeah.
so I'm making it up as I go along and um, trying to add a little glamour when I can uh, to the whole idea of it.
That's
Because I think there's a missing connection between young ones and old ones in
Mhm.
culture. And I think, I mean, I love telling them about the 60s and the 70s and you know, hanging out at the Palomino Club and North Hollywood and at the Troubadour and all that stuff. And it's weird to me that it's history, you know.
Yeah. Because it's your life. Yeah.
It was you know, but all that stuff, I think those stories need to be told. Stories
Mhm.
have always needed to be told.
Yeah.
And the right people to tell them are old people, you know, men too, but
Sure.
particularly Um, and you know, when you have your cards read, have you ever had your Indian cards read,
I
your
have.
Native American cards? Uh, and did you have a card for who you are?
I
Do
don't
you
know
remember?
that it was in that same vein, but I have had many card readings in my life. I grew up in Portland, Oregon. Very
Okay. Yeah,
alternative experience.
absolutely. Lots of native indigenous folks around. I remember being told by a reader, she'd picked all the cards for my children and people, and it was just so right on. Mine was the whale.
Hmm.
And this was many, many years ago. And the whale is the card of the grandmother.
Oh,
Stories. The whales are the ones who keep the stories. So I thought, yeah, okay, I'm in.
I love that connection,
Yeah.
and really embodying that experience and what it is to hold the stories and to share the stories and to gift the wisdom through
Yeah.
that generational piece.
So that's creativity
Yeah,
in a
it
very raw
absolutely is.
form, right? It's
Yes. Now, as someone who says yes to a lot of things, what are some of the challenges or creative challenges that you have come up against, and how do you face them?
creative challenges. They come every day. I mean, well, the fun of creativity is seeing a problem and coming up with a solution creatively. That's what the work is. And the challenge is, again, it never occurred to me not to be creative. It never occurred to me it never occurred to me, Mari, that creativity wasn't the supreme force,
Mm,
right? It
yeah,
was, it's creative energy that runs the universe, literally.
yeah,
And so the challenge is just doing it when it's in front of you to do whatever it is, and never apologizing for taking a creative, quote unquote, approach. Just,
yeah.
and
For
of course,
people who may hesitate in saying yes when creativity shows up, how would you encourage them to embrace more creativity in their life?
why wouldn't you? I mean,
I love this.
it's just so much more fun to ask for forgiveness. you know, it's just more fun. I don't know if we have more go rounds or not, but if this is the only one, I'm okay winding up in the dirt sometimes.
Yeah.
That's and a little bit bruised, a little bit battered, but boy, that was cool. Um, I don't want to waste an hour of it, a minute of it, Mari. I want it all to be interesting and fun. And the way to do that is to just follow the creativity wherever it goes.
Mhm.
And easy for me to say. I'm kind of fearless about stuff, I know, but and that you arrive with it, I think. Some of us just aren't smart enough to be afraid. And I think that describes me to a great degree. Uh,
Yeah.
we're a little more analytical, a little more sensible. I would be maybe going away or taking a sweater when I needed to or something. But I've just been kind of gonzo always about these things. And I dropped out of college 3 semesters. I was like, this is so boring. This is stupid. And I don't recommend that for people. But what I'm saying is that was just my chemistry, that was my makeup. I remember sitting in a class, 500 people at UCLA, geology, thinking, my poor dad is spending his last dimes on this for me. Forget about it. I'm going to Paris. And I did.
Yeah. I mean, there's a fearlessness and a trusting that it will all work out.
and it will.
Where does that come from? Was that modeled for you, or was that something that you heard or read or?
That's a good question, Mari. And I think for me, part of it was that some of the worst things that happened to people had happened to me already.
Hmm.
And I know this story is not unique to me. I've heard it from other people. So I thought, well, what's the worst that can happen now? You know, uh, And also I was full of story. I had read, I had seen, I had been inspired by all my life. I was preparing to go to Paris and be an artist.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was going to do. And right or wrong, it didn't necessarily make any sense. Didn't
Yeah.
need to. It was just, that was my dream. And there was, by the time I was 19 years old, there was just nothing keeping me from doing that. And I bought a one-way ticket. I went over on a big ship, which they weren't cruise ships in those days. They were actually old liners that they were using to transport troops in the World War II,
Yeah.
on an old German ship called Bremen. Never forget that. 7 of the most amazing days of my life. And I just wanted to soak up. A lot of my teen years had been not particularly happy because my mother was not well and
Mm-hmm.
so on. And I didn't love high school. I hated high school. You hear people talking about prom and, all the happy memories. And so that wasn't me. I was the one in the black trench coat,
Yeah.
going, what a boa. It just, it wasn't, I went to a huge high school, very impersonal,
Yeah.
and I had a sweet boyfriend, darling guy, but I just knew there was more out there.
Yeah.
Uh, and I wanted it, and I love now, by the way, that we make so much more available to younger teens academically. We don't make kids wait to learn like we did back in the day.
Yeah.
My granddaughter, 15, she's in her second year of college now.
Mm-hmm.
Loving it, working out great, doing fine. She will never go to prom. She will never be on a cheerleading squad.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay.
Yeah.
She's doing fascinating, wonderful things.
I
Um,
love it. I mean, you strike me as someone who really has big dreams and big adventures to achieve those dreams. And
all, yeah.
and when you achieve a dream or a goal and go on a roaring adventure, does the next adventure immediately pop up, or the next dream, or do you feel like do you ever have some downtime to kind of marinate the next or
Yeah. I'm
imagine the next one?
a big believer, Mari, in following your snoot. The
Ooh.
best things happen to you when you just go, I'm going to look in that door. I am going to open that door and peek in there and see. And it happened to me the other day. I mean, it's a very small example. My daughter, not the one who's the medical, but my daughter's mother of my 15-year-old granddaughter, she and I were celebrating her birthday, little restaurant. We had some time. And the building right next door, there was a saddle maker. And I thought, I really need to just go in there. And we opened the door and we went in and we met the most wonderful guy who was an accomplished saddle maker who trained in France with Hermes, who does these beautiful. We have a mutual friend, and he gave us hats, and he gave and it just ended up being this wonderful experience, new friend, new acquaintance, new thing in our lives because we opened the door.
Mm. I love that experience and that story and the reminder that it's okay to open the door and be curious and seek out something new, and to have what other people may hear as that was a big risk or a big dream, and for you to have it be everyday life.
If you go with good intention,
Mm.
it doesn't always work out. But generally in my life, if I've taken really good intention with me, everyone wants to tell you their story. Everyone wants to be appreciated. Everyone wants you to like what they do.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to show you their art. The world is full of people looking for connection.
Mm.
And if you offer a connection to people, all kinds of good things happen. Now, here's a caveat. I'm will never see 75 again. You know, that ship has sailed. I'm old, which I say, as you already know, I'm happy to be old. I love it. When you are a young woman, you're prey. So the world looks a little different to you, and you have to have a certain caution about how you move through the world. But still, so many interesting things happened to me just because I said, hello, right? Because I sat down and talked to someone in a cafe, in a train, on a bus bench, wherever.
Yeah.
That's to me where creativity begins, is that connection with other people. And I think one of your questions was something about your first creative experience, or
What's your earliest memory of being creative? Yeah.
I have so many memories as a little kid of being creative, but the first one that I remember, because it made me angry, was in kindergarten. She was darling, Mrs. Evard. She wanted us to paint a horse. And so I painted a horse race. And she chastised me because she had told us to paint a horse, not a horse race. And right then and there, I said to myself, lady, this horse race is so much more fun than all those stupid horses. What are you talking about? Right? I don't know why, but I just thought, this is who I am and this is what I do. And how dare you question that? Really? I'm 5.
I
Right? You
love
don't
it. As you should, as all 5-year-olds need to be and allowed to be. Yes.
When you're 5, you are super creative and you've got all kinds of great ideas, stories.
100%. And it needs to be cultivated and supported and shared with other people. And thank you for sharing that story with us. I love hearing it. I loved hearing all of your stories. I just have one last question for you. What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
It's like breathing. Creativity is every cell in your body. And there is such a thing as flow, when you really get going and 12 hours later, you realize that you've just done this thing that you couldn't stop doing. I don't have those opportunities as much anymore as I did as a student or younger person. But what does it feel like to be creative? What does it feel like to not be creative? I don't know. I mean, my latest book is a cookbook, and I often think the most creative things that we do are just putting a meal together out of nothing. When you open your fridge up and go, okay, what's it going to be? And you put some things together and you add some spice and you stir it up. It's as basic as that, isn't it? That's what it feels like to be creative. It's making something out of nothing. It's just the best.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. It has been such a treat. And if listeners want to know more about your books or what social media platforms you're on, how could they go about finding you?
They can find me very easily, Mari, on lynnebowman.com. Just spell it LYNNEBOWMAN.com. And all my stuff is on there, the social media stuff. You can send me a note. There's a little form where you can fill it out and ask me questions, or tell me off, or whatever you'd like to do. And my book, Brownies for Breakfast, bestseller on Amazon. And it's easy to find. It's paperback or hardback on Amazon. And I'm working on doing an Audible version, so I hope that'll be out pretty soon. And you say, wait a minute, an Audible cookbook? This is not an ordinary cookbook now. So you will want an Audible of this cookbook because it's stories. And
I love it. How fun.
yeah. And it's also a cookbook, but a lot of story. So yeah, lynnebowman.com, books on Amazon. Go to your independent bookseller. Love it. Want to support them. and ask them for the book. They can get it from their wholesaler if they don't have it.
Perfect. Well, I will put all of this in show notes so people have easy access. And thank you again so much for sharing all your stories and your own creative experience and expression with us. It has been such a pleasure.
Thank you for doing this, Lori. What a great concept for a podcast. Love it.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.